What's up, guys? It's Chaz, it's Charlie, and today I want to discuss weaning yourself off of marijuana. And the question is, should you go cold turkey? Should you wean yourself off? And I'm going to talk about my journey. And me personally, I felt like I was more successful at weaning myself off. And I'll explain. So, of course, I pretty much smoked weed every day of my life from the age of 18 up until my early 30s. I've said in the past that I did start a spiritual journey about 7 years ago, and one of the aspects in my new lifestyle was I started to observe the Sabbath, which is every Saturday. So the Bible states every Saturday, every 7th day, man shall rest. Not buy, not sell, not do pretty much worldly things, be out in the world shopping, doing your leisure or whatever. So me and my family started to observe the Sabbath. So during that day, we would, of course, not sell, not buy anything, not necessarily not ever go out. We do go on walks, so go to the park or whatever. We do Bible study. But I didn't do anything that brought me personal pleasure, things like smoking weed, smoking cigarettes, or whatnot. So that was my first brush at basically going a day without smoking weed. And I think that kind of propelled me, and also let me know that, okay, I could go 24 hours without smoking weed. Of course, first starting that, we usually observe from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. So, sundown Saturday, I would still roll up a blunt and go on with my life of smoking weed. So, throughout my journey, rather than going cold turkey, since I was aware that I could go, of course, a day without smoking weed and not being in pure misery, I started to do things. I started to take out a day during the week. I say, okay, I'm going to smoke every other day. So I would smoke Monday, not smoke Tuesday, smoke Wednesday, not smoke Thursday. And that slowly trained my body to survive more days without marijuana. And I really compare it to, and I feel like it was easier for me personally to actually quit when it came time to, because I knew that I could go throughout life, go through my day without needing marijuana. I compare it to the death of my grandfather. Growing up, me and my grandfather, we were very close. And I pretty much fear today that he actually died. I feel like when he died, that's going to be hard, because we were pretty much like sold to the hip. We did everything together. I pretty much spent my childhood being his sidekick. So I'm like, when he actually died, I don't know how, like, life is gonna pretty much suck. But towards the end of his life, I'm saying the last 6 months of his life, he got real ill. He had a bout with dialysis for about 10 years before his death, but he was still pretty much his normal self. But the last 6 months, he ended up having a stroke. So for about 6 months, and I would say 3 months in particular, he wasn't himself. Of course, he couldn't communicate well. He couldn't drive. He pretty much was just there. I got used to him not being there. That makes any, he was there, he wasn't there. So when he did finally pass away, it was a relief, and more importantly, it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be, because my life, I got accustomed to my life being without him, not being around him during the day's time, not having that normal day-to-day, minute by minute, hour by hour interaction. So when he finally did die or pass away, it wasn't as hard. It was a pretty easy pill to swallow, and I was pretty much able just to pick up life and not be like this walking sad corpse. And I feel like that's pretty much how I also dealt with quitting marijuana. Not only did I wean myself off and, take days off from smoking, I smoked far less. Whereas I was smoking in my height anywhere from 3 to 6 blunts per day. And I got down to either smoking a blunt or half a blunt in a day's time, on top of laying some days completely off. So I built basically my tolerance back up to survive on my own, to not actually depend on weed. And also a big part of me about quitting, I figured how it would affect my appetite with food. I pretty much started to link my hunger and me eating with smoking. I didn't want to eat until I smoked, which is a topic within itself. But that was a big issue with me, feeling like, okay, when I finally do stop smoking weed, I'm not going to enjoy food. But spoiler, if you go about 2-3 weeks without smoking, your taste buds, your appetite will kind of rejuvenate itself and get back to normal. But I got used to living a sober life, and it was clear to me that, I can go day to day without actually smoking. And I think that's important. A lot of times when we get so accustomed to smoking weed, we feel like we need it, and it's all a mental thing, unlike things like hard drugs and even alcohol. These things tend to come physically addictive. The good thing about weed is when you do, no matter how much you smoke, no matter how much is a part of your life, it's all mental. It's not a physical thing. So it's really about psyching yourself out with knowing you can go day to day and handle your own anxiety and not depend on weed as a crutch. And a big realization when I was weaning myself off, I realized that my days when I smoked and days when I didn't smoke, they weren't very much different. It's not like I handled stress any better on my day that I didn't smoke versus when I did. It really was a mental thing and also a habit. I think we get so accustomed to the habit of things. I just got used to the habit of rolling the blunt, smoking the blunt, more so than the act of getting actually high. I did realize that a Monday that I didn't smoke is no different than a Tuesday where I did smoke my little half a blunt. So what's stopping me from embracing a full life of not smoking at all in a day's time? And I think it's important that we realize that we can mentally do this. And I think the hard thing about marijuana specifically is, it's a drug that you don't necessarily destroy your life. It's not like, again, hard drugs or alcohol where it starts to really affect other people, really affect your health, become a visible thing that's kind of an issue. It's a very manageable drug. Come on, Charlie. It's a very manageable drug that you can pretty much go day-to-day life without giving off the impression of a drug addict. Me and my family, we also vacation at least twice a year. So I started getting into the habit of trying to go a full vacation, without smoking weed. And that was a big part of my journey too, to let me know that not only could I go, day or two without it, I could go a full week without smoking and have fun with my family, be refreshed at life, be content with what I have, and not depending on an outside substance to determine my attitude, on how I felt, how I ate, so on and so on. So I do think a big part of winging yourself off, you begin to learn yourself when you don't smoke, and when you do smoke. I was able to compare my mental thoughts on days where I did smoke versus I didn't. So it causes you to actually be more aware of yourself, of your motivation behind when you're high, when you're smoking, and when you're not. If you can go cold turkey, I say go for it, go ahead. That is great. Me personally, I didn't want it to be such a shock to my system. I think a lot of times people tend to fail at things when they put too much on their plate. And I do think it can vary from person to person. Some people, I think there are a select group of people who can go all in with achieving something. And some like going turkey, they feel like I can't dabble around. I just got to go in feet first and put all in. But I think because it is usually with smoking weed such a culture shock, and it goes from, a life of smoking and contentness to a life of uncontentness with not being high, not smoking. And it is such a drastic change to, we can quickly go back to our old habits, our old ways. So I do think going cold turkey, it really increases the chance of you actually going back, versus when you do slowly wing yourself off and then you make the decision to quit. It's a much easier transition, and once you finally do make that change, it's easier for you to stay in that change, because you do have proof, you do have evidence that you can survive without smoking weed. I will say that what you should watch out for when winging yourself off is to not staying in one cycle for a long period of time. For example, you can say, okay, I'm going to start with smoking every other day. Okay, if you go, let's say, a month or two and continue to just go with that every other day cycle, your body will get used to smoking every other day. And you would either, one, stay in that same position, stay in that same spot, or you can also, and if you stay in the same spot, you will most likely go back in the opposite direction. You will say, okay, it may be an issue that comes up in a day's time, something that stretches out, whether it's relationship, job, whatever. You will say, you know what, I normally don't smoke today. I'm smoking tomorrow. What's the big deal? I have some weed back there. Let me just smoke a little piece. And I think that is it. Doing that repeatedly will cause you to go back to smoking almost every day. There were points in my journey where, I got kind of stuck in one spot, and before I knew it, I was slowly back smoking more than I was during the previous month. So even with winging yourself off, there should still be a constant going forward of winging yourself off more and more, month by month, week by week, until you have to get to a point where you say, okay, I know for a fact I can survive without weed. I'm stopping at this point from now on. I did get tired of the cycle when I did wing myself. I was swinging myself off, but I still felt like it was still a part of my life, because, I was still waiting for the next day or the next week when it was time to smoke again. I think the point of winging yourself off is to not shock your system when you finally do quit. But if you continue in that cycle of just cutting back, your system will get used to smoking every other day, every other week, and you will stay in that same cycle if you're not consistent on wanting to change. So it is a forward moving thing. It's not just, oh, this month I did good from last month. You know, I think we should acknowledge our accomplishments, acknowledge our progression, but not stay too long in it. Aim for more. If you say, okay, I'm going every other week, let me now aim for smoking once a week. Once you get to a once a week point, I do think you're at a point where you can say you can just quit altogether. So, I want you guys to let me know what you feel. Are you on your journey now? Do you feel like, you know, you're better at quitting going cold turkey, or it will work better for you to wing yourself off? Please like, subscribe, share. Most importantly, comment below, because I want to hear what you guys feel, what your journey is, what you're going through, and which is better for you. Until next time, remember, guys, we are all in this together. Bye.